Look at that. We triggered the balloons right off the bat. Great morning, world. Great morning, humans. This would be your boy, Dr. J.C. Doornick, aka the Dragon, otherwise known as. And welcome to another edition of the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast, but the live edition. This will not be the version that shows up on the podcast. We do that all clean, and this is the one that has the high potential of being screwed up. So we're streaming live on multiple platforms. Let's get that one going on Instagram as well, which is always an interesting challenge. But we're going to let people file in. And the intention of this is to have a session, a live session where we can interact on some of these topics. And this one is a doozy. You know what I just realized? We don't use that doozy word often enough. Isn't that interesting? All right. Well, we're going to struggle with the Instagram live here today. But what's good about struggle is what comes before everything that we want. Isn't that fun to catch yourself like that? All right. Well, we'll try that one again later. So in any case, great morning, everybody. Great morning, world. This is the live version every Monday morning at 8 a.m. I've been doing this for a minute. Today, we're going to be talking about immortality. It's a very controversial topic, and I've read recently some just amazing books, and I'm going to kind of lay the framework for this discussion. We'll be together for about 20, 30 minutes, more like 30. And what we do is we have a full podcast episode and a full Substack. Let me see if I can show you guys that Substack. There it is right there. So if you want to subscribe to the Substack, that's my free newsletter. You go ahead and just scan that QR code. We're populating this screen with a lot of stuff right now, aren't we? We're becoming a salesy kind of a show. So there's my Substack free newsletter. Comes out probably like 3 times a week. I have this series called Echoes of I like to take topics like the one I'm going to talk about today and just bring them to the forefront of your, mind, and just make you kind of arm you with awareness of some of the things that are going on in the blind spots of your life. We'll try one more time with that live. Yeah, we'll just screw that one. So in any case, what we do on Mondays is we do a live, and we always we either do a full summary of books, but today we have 2 books because I'm reading a lot. One of the dangers of becoming a speed reader, and this is a message to my great friend, Jim Quick, who armed me with speed reading and memory retention, which is an awesome thing. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because I'm almost reading too much. Is that possible? So I find myself, picking a topic like today, immortality, specifically digital immortality, and like reading multiple books on it. So in some sort of strange way of saying thank you to Jim, like, yeah, thanks for all the over information that I have now. Is that possible? Is that even a thing? So this is a really, really cool topic. And what I'm going to do is just kind of free flow on it and give you some of my thoughts on it. But this is one of those things, this idea of immortality. I mean, I can ask you that question right off the bat and just kind of get your input because I want to have an interactive conversation with you today. What do you think about immortality? And what do you think that would look like for you if you had the opportunity, and if you had the opportunity to live forever, right? We're focused a lot on longevity and anti-aging and stuff like that with our physical body. If you had the opportunity to live forever, would you take it? And if you did take it, what would that look like for you? The first thought that I had when I asked myself that question and didn't feel the need to respond so fast, and I just kind of said, my first thought was that the only reason I get out of bed in the morning and go after life with such urgency is that I know that there's an expiration date. Isn't that an interesting thing? So the first thing is, like, if I knew I was going to live for like 1,000 years, I would take a lot of days off. You know what I mean? And then so there was the downside of it, and then I would look at the upside of it and say, but I would be able to see generations, and then I said, oh, but we would have a population problem, or we'd have to have a limit on, maybe my kids would not be allowed to have kids. So it's a very controversial topic when you're looking at the idea of our physical bodies living forever. But that's something that's probably very, very far away, in the sense that, because stem cell research is getting pretty intense right now, but the idea of our physical bodies living forever, um, I'm sure is a possibility, but that's not what we're going to be discussing today. We're going to be discussing our souls, our consciousness, right? Just our memories, our self, everything that makes you living on forever in a digital format. So very, very controversial topic. But what I want to offer you today is I want to arm you with the awareness that this is one of those things that you don't have to agree with and you don't have to like, but it's going to happen. Isn't that an interesting way to look at life? We spend so much time forming opinions about, whether it's religion, politics, or anything that you have an opinion on, good versus bad, everything. And we're always looking at how they're all necessary, but we spend so much time forming opinions on things, and we very often build walls and say, I don't do that. I don't do any of that. So this is one of those things that you don't really have a choice in the matter. It's coming, this idea of digital immortality. And it's being cloaked right now with a lot of the advancements that you're enjoying, or you don't like as well. And, that's in virtual reality, augmented reality, and, artificial intelligence. So it's very, very controversial to be living in this day and age. For those of you that might watch this recording after I'm dead, or maybe I'll be some sort of digital, immortal being. This is May 5th of 2025. And we're living in a time right now where, everything is about artificial intelligence, whether it's what you're excited about, your work interface. People are increasingly working from home right now. When we're consuming social media, we no longer know what's real and what's not. And the future is very, very interesting for people like us, because it's one of excitement and fear, but it's happening no matter what. And I see a lot of people forming opinions about a lot of things right now that it doesn't really matter what their opinion is. It's going to happen. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that. If you're watching this live, then we can interact live. You can check in, let us know where you're coming from, ask questions. So this is the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast. This is not the podcast version. This is the live version that we do on Mondays. Make Sense Mondays, we call them. But if you subscribe to the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast, you'll get the full episodes, as well as with the Substack, our free newsletter. We put that up in the beginning. You can watch that in the beginning. So this episode has already been done in full and is on the editing stage right now for the see, that's what we don't say on the podcast. We don't say for the and think. But that would be the full episode for this will be on the podcast. So I just want to start off by laying the foundation for this discussion today. We're going to be together for another 22 minutes. So the idea is we're going to look at something called digital immortality. And I just want to arm and equip you with the awareness of it. Some of you might know about it, but some of you might all of a sudden say, oh, wow, I didn't know about that. And now you'll know. And once something comes into the known, that's when you start to process it and see what you think about it. But that's why I wanted to start off with this disclaimer and say it doesn't matter what you think about it, in the sense that that's not going to stop it from happening. It's actually happening in many, many ways, as you'll see. So the way I label this episode is digital immortality. Are we on the brink of living forever through platforms like artificial intelligence? So I just want to read the beginning of this, and you'll get the essence of the conversation. So what if death wasn't the end? Think about how much of a role death plays in your life, first of all. What if death wasn't the end? What if your mind, your memories, and your personality, whatever it is that you call you and yourself, what if those things could live on forever. So being accessible to future generations of your family that you'd otherwise never get to meet. That's an interesting thing. You know, I wonder if my family will tell accurate stories, or even I wonder if they will tell stories. So there's the topic of legacy, which is very controversial as well. You know, we worry so much about death and we worry so much about our life ending. And then we kind of are forced to realize, like, does our life really even matter? You know, we see what happens when someone that we really care about and love passes on. We get over it. You know, sometimes it's harder than others, but we get over it. So this concept of leaving a legacy and having your time count in this unpredictable thing that we call life, um, is something that we struggle with very often. And that's how your legacy lives on. But the idea of digital immortality is, imagine if there was a way for your future family that you would never otherwise meet to have the ability to interface with you and see what it's like to know you on a platform that learns from what they say and things like that. So that's coming. So Seneca, the great Stoic, said this once. He said, "The day of our death is the birth of our eternity." This is what's interesting about death and afterlife. We're always, my daughter's asking me this question now: what happens when we die? And I say, you want the truth, or you want me to tell you what I hope happens? And I say, the truth is, I don't think anything happens. I think that's it. It's over. And that's not what she wants to hear, but that's what I think, but what I hope, you know. So the day of our death is the birth of our eternity. And what he meant by that is, after we die, that's when we can experience something that is forever, hypothetically. So, but what if that eternity wasn't some sort of mystical afterlife that we're always wondering about? But what if it was actually in the form of a digital interface? Now, just imagine that you were listening to me right now, and I was just a digital interface. I've already passed away, and I've uploaded my consciousness, my memory, my learning capacity, everything into some sort of high performance. And we don't have proof that that's not actually happening right now. Sorry to say. But imagine if that's what it was. This is what it would look like. You would be listening to a podcast, interacting with a guy in live, you know, format. You could put a question in here right now, and I would be able to read it and respond to you, but I would be a digital form. That's what it would look like. So that's pretty cool for our families. So we're living in a time where science is making huge strides in anti-aging and longevity. I'm very fascinated with that. Atia's book, Outlive, is fascinating. So I take my physical health very seriously. It's very much part of my livelihood and my career. So that's very, very promising right now, anti-aging and longevity, but that's not immortality, right? There's something even bolder going on and more radical of an idea that is emerging right now, and that's this idea of digital immortality. So imagine a world where your memories and consciousness could be uploaded to a machine, allowing you to live indefinitely as a digital being, some sort of avatar. Imagine that. Sounds like some sort of sci-fi movie. Well, it's closer than you think. It's actually happening already. And I would assume that if you have never heard of this, it's just because it's proof that you're living in a protective bubble that is protecting what you have been conditioned to think is what we call reality. And we try to protect ourselves in that, because if we just go up to the edge of that bubble and, as Steve Jobs used to say, poke it, you'll see that there's something on the other side of that bubble. And most people are afraid to find out what's going on the other side of that bubble. So if you hear concepts like this and in your knee-jerk reaction, let's talk about interface response system. If you hear concepts that there's something called digital immortality, or even if you hear a concept that you don't believe in, like reincarnation or something like that, and it pisses you off and you find yourself saying that's hogwash and you back into your bubble, I just challenge you to just acknowledge how in that moment you think that your bubble is real, right? So once again, these things are going to happen no matter what. So my take on it is that I don't have to make up my mind about anything. Haven't made up my mind. That's what stands for. but I'm open and curious to learning because I would love to learn something that I was wrong about so that I could be more right. Isn't that interesting? I'm a control freak. I like to know. So today we're going to dive deep into this fascination or a fascinating world. And this is a mind-bending topic that we're going to focus on here today. But when digital immortality, we're going to look at digital immortality and look at what it really is and who's leading the charge. So let's just first of all identify exactly what digital mortality is, okay? Because it's a thing. You could go Google it right now and there's people leading the charge. So it's the idea that we can preserve a person's consciousness. Now, we don't even really know what consciousness is, and our brains have billions of neurons and things like that. So this is not an easy task, right? But it's the idea of figuring out how to map that out and load it to a machine, right? Everything that makes you, your memories, your personalities, your thoughts, and store it digitally. Just so you can identify, for those of you that play with ChatGPT, you can see that ChatGPT, each time you come back to it, remembers a little bit about you. You no longer have to tell it things. It knows how you would respond. So it's a learning system. So we understand that there is an interface that can learn over time how to be like you. But what we're talking about is in some sort of a fashion, mapping your brain authentically and loading it to a machine so that the day that you're on your deathbed, that's what it will look like. You're on your deathbed and you're laying there knowing that your physical body is about to die and you're fully aware, and maybe this would either freak you out or decrease your concern because you're fully aware that you had purchased the silver package of digital immortality and already did a mind map and loaded it to a system, and you're wondering what that's going to be like, and the doctor says, well, you're about to die, meaning your physical body's going to die, but instantaneously you're going to load right back up into a machine, and you're going to have to get used to it because it's going to be you're going to remember this conversation, the doctor will say, but you're no longer going to have a body, and that will be your new reality. You'll be able to interface with your anybody in there. Like, let's say you're a friend or a family had loaded to the machine, and you'd be able to interact with them as an avatar. If they had already died and they didn't map themselves, well, then they're already gone. They didn't get this opportunity. So it would be from that day forward. But you would also be able to interface like I'm interfacing with you right now with friends and family as you. You just wouldn't have a body. Now, here's an interesting thought about that, because that kind of freaks people out. And once again, when you listen to the podcast episode, all the intricacies of this will be in there, and a lot of stuff on these amazing books right here that I just found these two books to be really, really cutting edge in this realm. But if you're too freaked out or you don't like to read books, just read my Substack when it comes out or listen to the podcast episode maybe next week. So what I find interesting about that is this idea of not having a body. I'm looking at myself on a screen right now, and I can see that I have a body, right? And I know that I have a body because I'm here and I'm touching it, but I do have a body on this screen, right? It's just digital. So we're moving into a world, and our kids are proof of this, where digital, first of all, interfacing with other people is way more comfortable than it ever has been. I mean, just imagine the first time that you ever did this, looked at somebody like you're looking at me right now and had a conversation with them. It takes getting used to, but we're very used to that right now. Well, our kids live more in that world than otherwise. So for our kids one day to transfer from physical to digital, I have this strong sense that that's not going to be an issue for them at all, right? So if it's an issue for you, I just want you to take another perspective of it, which is very much the work that we do. And just imagine what it would be like for somebody that is very comfortable with this. We're now in a world where my generation, which, is post baby boomers, Generation X, my generation is the last generation that grew up without the internet and without this stuff. So I had to get used to this stuff, but I'm used to it now. Some people in my generation are not, but the generations after us, this is all they know. They don't know about cords. They know wireless and digital. So just imagine, like, my daughter's 15, her kids, this is reality. So I just want you to recognize, if you're freaked out by this idea of digitizing your consciousness, that's going to be an extremely comfortable thing in the near future. I mean, those are my thoughts on it. I'm trying to get some of these authors to come on the show, and I'd love to have a conversation with them. So in any case, it's a complete migration of yourself into a non-biological platform. So that's the difference. The only difference between you right now and a digital version of you is a biological platform that you're using, your body. Now, my quick thoughts on that, and you might like the idea of having an expiration date and things like that, but look at all the things. We're all so afraid of dying. Everything about our lives is focused on death, right? We're avoiding death, we're avoiding pain and all that. And if you look at all the money and time that we're spending on medicine and the advancements of medicine, holistic or not, it's all about life extension. That's what we're doing. Everything that we're focusing on, with my health and my nutrition and my lean muscle mass goals, and I've created a whole career around that. It's all about extending life. But if you knew that you could extend your life, would you say, I only want to extend it this long? So I think that everything that we're doing is indicating that we would probably like the idea, with some rules attached to it and some boundaries, of living longer, at least, or forever. But it's kind of one of those, careful what you ask for, you just might get it. So this is a controversial topic that I'd love to get your feedback on. Don't see anybody commenting yet, but I see people listening live. I'd love to get your topic, or your thoughts on this. If you had the opportunity to live forever, would you? So let me go through some more awesome things that I found on this that you'll hear in the full episode. And I promise I'll make this I'll end it on a positive note. So the major players in this right now, and you can see, we've got Zoltan here and we've got Ray Kurzweil, but the major players are people that you very often know. I saw a video one time where Ray Kurzweil said that if you're alive in 5 years, you will have the opportunity to live forever. And that made me go, So I started to look at all of his stuff, and I read this book, The Singularity is Near, which is all about that. It's really, really cool. And then I found out about this idea of this group of people that can call themselves transhumans, right? And the transhuman wager is this wager that this guy makes. It's almost like selling your soul with the devil to, live forever. So Ray Kurzweil is just a fantastic leader in this. You've probably heard his name, and he wrote that book. He's talking a lot about humans, that are how humans are going to merge with AI, unlocking new levels of consciousness and life extension. For him, digital immortality, he says, is a key milestone in our evolution. So he talks about the fact that if not for this potential, we're destroying the planet, right? That's what most people say. I never listen to most people, but anyway, he says it's a key element. And then obviously Elon Musk, a lot of people think that Elon Musk is just making cars. And I know he's controversial right now, but let's just focus on what he's created. He's working on battery life extension, cars, SpaceX, but he's also working on this thing called Neuralink. And real simple, Neuralink is going to be this chip that's going to enhance your capacity to learn. You can learn a language like that. You're going to learn like a computer. So that's a symptom and a sign that we're moving towards digitizing even our physical body. So when you get someone like Ray Kurzweil and Elon Musk together, and somebody like Randall Cohn, who's a neuroscientist, who's talking about carbon copies, and then Martine Rothblatt, who's another key figure. She founded something called the Terrorism movement, and lifenaught.com. All these things will be in the podcast, where she's working on collecting people's data and memories to build digital replicas. And by the way, we've got 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure I get as much as this in. I want to just pose an interesting thought to you right now. So if you're somebody that thinks about this and you're afraid of it, or it angers you, and you're like, oh man, this is what I hate about where the world's going and stuff like that, I get it. But if you're interfacing with social media, you're already mapping your brain, right, in this algorithm thing. I just want you to just take a step back and recognize that your brain and your consciousness and the way you think and your likes and dislikes are being saved and recorded to a system. And that now that I've brought it up, you know that. But the only difference is you don't own that. We're talking about that same thing, but that you get to own it. Maybe that will help. So, we get into a closer look at some of those books. And, there's this idea of this mind file. And I ask in the episode, I say, have you created a mind file yet? And your answer would be, no, I haven't. And I gave you that idea, that scenario where you're on your deathbed and you say, oh, don't worry about it, I've created a mind file. So nobody's done that yet, right? But you just don't own it. So after you die, your data is going to live on, maybe not be used. It'll be used in the grand scheme of human, behavior, but, like Facebook owns it, Instagram owns your data. So why wouldn't you save it? It's interesting because it's kind of like saving your umbilical cord, right? For DNA and things like that. Now, there's another thing that's really interesting. You've got all these people like Dr. Tofik Valiente, and he's from the Kremvel Neuroscience Center. This guy's a neurosurgeon and a scientist. He has a really, really interesting thing where he says that it's impossible to map a human brain. What makes the human brain so interesting is how it evolves. And he says that if we map out somebody's consciousness and memories and we save it, that's great. But the way that the human brain really works and what makes it so unique, and I thought this was kind of funny, but also like, wow, I never thought of this. He says that when a human, and that's you and me, when a human goes and recalls a memory, each time they recall a memory, the memory gets the story changes. The memory gets recoded in its new version. So what's interesting about recording memories is he makes it very clear that, what did he say? He remarks that memory is not absolute because of that. He calls it confabulation. What that means is that we confabulate our stories. We make them better or worse, but more exaggerated. But each time we do that, it gets recoded as that becomes the memory. So what I find fascinating is that if somebody were to map and save my memories right now, I wonder how valid they would be. And I wonder if my generations that interacted with me, that heard memories about, where they come from, maybe they would be completely BS by the time they did it. So very controversial. Now, I want to get this out. My personal thoughts on this is this. I like the idea. Now, I can't imagine what it would be like for me. Well, I guess I could, because it's kind of like what I'm doing right now. I can't imagine what it would be like for me to be digitized and immortal and know it like I know what I know right now. I can't imagine what that's like. But I do like the idea of, at least before I die, mapping myself, creating an avatar of myself, hopefully at a young, youthful age, right? Or maybe all versions. The family could interact with every version of myself. I would get the upgraded package. But I like the idea of them being able to interface with me, even though it's maybe not me, but it's me. So they would know what it was like. They could ask me questions. They could, just like you ask Google, I would be like a Google for our family history, as far as I know it. Some of my theories, like the interface response system, rather than just reading it in a book, they could ask me and I could explain it to them. My talents could actually go on and continue to earn income for my family, because I could do lectures, all recorded and things like that. And I could actually interface with people. So I like that idea. I like the idea of my kids' being able to meet me. So I will say that. And there's a lot of this, these two books right here, you'll hear a lot about them. And this is a paradigm shift as well. And what that means is the idea of uploading consciousness isn't just a technical challenge. It will require a shift in perspective. So I love that topic. Maybe I'll end on that, because this is something you can play with today. I love the idea of entertaining a new perspective. It's the whole nuts and bolts of my interface response system. It's just the idea of the real danger that we run into is when we're thinking and feeling and we buy into it as reality. So the interface response system says, pause that, right? Because there's a great chance that it's not valid, and step into this space where you can reflect on what you're observing from a different perspective. So I love the idea of getting a different perspective. It helps me not buy into my own BS, but also not proceed in life without being open and curious to learn more, thinking that I know everything, protecting myself in the bubble. So I love new perspectives. But when we have a paradigm shift, like this idea of, let's say all of a sudden we're all going to get mind mapped, or we would all have the choice, it would require that you would shift your paradigm about what that means. And my last thought on it would be this, and this will be controversial for some of you, but why would we want to map the human experience exactly the way it is when it has so many problems? Think about all the problems that we're causing and all the flaws in humanity. I know that you're perfect, but everybody else, think about all the problems that come along with humanity. I mean, we're in essence destroying ourselves. Why would we want to reproduce that? Why would we want to preserve exactly that? So I like the idea, just a different perspective, of preserving a better version of us that's less messed up, more efficient. So we're very frightened of that idea. But why would we be frightened of a better version of us when in many ways we're a mess, a less messy version of humans? I don't know. So I haven't made up my mind about it, but I like entertaining it. I like entertaining it because it's logical. Anyway, love and appreciate you all. There's so much more about this episode. Hoping that I see some comments come in and we can interface. Remember, we have the Substack that you guys are all welcome to enjoy. I'll put that up there, and these books will be in there, and the podcast episode will be live next week. Remember that this is sponsored in large part by the Make Sense Academy, and that's our private psychological safe haven where people that are on the verge of something big, but just don't know how to go ahead and quiet down their operating system, and they just are oscillating through life, kind of at a crossroads in life. Come and check out the Make Sense Academy and join our live masterminds and get into the work of the interface response system and reclaim control as a dominant force of your life by simply allowing yourself to entertain different ideas other than the ones that you have bought into. So check out the Make Sense Academy. It costs less per month to work with me live and be part of the group and gain access to all the courses. It costs less a month than you will probably spend on stuff today that you don't even need. So very affordable. So love and appreciate you all. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.